You don't even get that title no more. You lost it. You're a sperm donor.
She didn't hire a lawyer. She didn't call a blog. She didn't send a quiet statement through some PR rep. She jumped on live and said everything herself. NBA YoungBoy's baby mama went straight to the camera and let it all fly. No filter, no warning, nothing held back. She started naming names, pulling up proof, and laying out details that people say can't be taken back now.
Stopped the car when you was 13 and turned around and spit on you. I probably would have did the same thing.
Within minutes, clips were flying across the internet, and millions of people were all asking the same wild question. Did she just shake NBA YoungBoy's whole career to the core? The moment everyone's talking about went down on March 2nd, 2026. A woman named Arcola, the mother of YoungBoy's son, Kale, hit the live button and unloaded years of things she said she had been holding in. There was no PR team guiding the message, no legal team standing behind the camera, no carefully written statement passed to the media, just her, the camera, and a lot to say. She stared straight into the lens and started speaking with serious energy. By the time the live ended, the internet had already grabbed every second of it. People weren't just reacting to one situation either. According to viewers, what she described sounded like a pattern some fans had already been whispering about online. It also brought attention to a marriage people had quietly been side-eyeing for a while.
Fuck, bitch. You purposely burnt my baby.
Arcola also talked about something that really got people heated. Her young son coming back from a visit with a mark on his hand, something she made clear she was not about to ignore. And the person she called out during that live? NBA YoungBoy's wife, Jaslyn Michelle. One thing was clear from the start. Arcola didn't come online to play around. But before breaking down exactly what she said and why the internet reacted the way it did, there's a bigger picture here. Because if you jump into this story without knowing who these people are and how their history connects, you're gonna miss why this whole situation exploded the way it did. So let's start this story from the very beginning. NBA YoungBoy, born Kentrell Deshaun Gaulden on October 20th, 1999 in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, is far from your average rapper.
It's not a dog bite. I can pull up dog bite.
This isn't some artist who pops for a year and then fades away. We're talking about a serious force in the rap world, someone who has been dominating the scene since his teenage years and hasn't slowed down since. By early 2026, his numbers look almost unreal. NBA YoungBoy holds the record for the most Billboard 200 chart entries by any rapper in his generation. 34 different projects have hit the chart, breaking a record that stood strong for years, and he managed to do it all in just 8 years of dropping music. That kind of run doesn't happen by accident. The certifications tell the same story. He's the most RIAA certified rapper of all time.
Let's see what dog bites look like. That's not a dog bite. That is a burn.
Stacking up more than 126 gold or higher certifications as a lead artist. At one point, Complex even placed him on the cover and called him the best rapper alive for 2020. Then there's the touring power. His Make America Slime Again tour reportedly pulled in over $70 million across 42 shows and moved around 555,000 tickets. On YouTube, the numbers are just as wild. His channel has passed 15 billion views, and for a stretch, he was the most watched musician on the entire platform. So make no mistake, this man is not a fluke. He's a full franchise in the music industry. But while his music career keeps breaking records, his personal life has been grabbing headlines just as loud. Because outside the studio, YoungBoy has been dealing with a life situation most people honestly can't even imagine.
I could see the brown at the top. That is a burn. And let KL tell it.
She didn't hire a lawyer. She didn't call a blog. She didn't send a quiet statement through some PR rep. She jumped on live and said everything herself. NBA YoungBoy's baby mama went straight to the camera and let it all fly. No filter, no warning, nothing held back. She started naming names, pulling up proof, and laying out details that people say can't be taken back now. Within minutes, clips were flying across the internet, and millions of people were all asking the same wild question. Did she just shake NBA YoungBoy's whole career to the core? The moment everyone's talking about went down on March 2nd, 2026. A woman named Arcola, the mother of YoungBoy's son, Kale, hit the live button and unloaded years of things she said she had been holding in. There was no PR team guiding the message, no legal team standing behind the camera, no carefully written statement passed to the media, just her, the camera, and a lot to say.
Thinks when I got hit in the eye, it was his his SPERM space DONOR. You're not a dad, you're just a sperm donor.
She stared straight into the lens and started speaking with serious energy. By the time the live ended, the internet had already grabbed every second of it. People weren't just reacting to one situation either. According to viewers, what she described sounded like a pattern some fans had already been whispering about online. It also brought attention to a marriage people had quietly been side-eyeing for a while. Arcola also talked about something that really got people heated. Her young son coming back from a visit with a mark on his hand, something she made clear she was not about to ignore. And the person she called out during that live? NBA YoungBoy's wife, Jaslyn Michelle. One thing was clear from the start, Arcola didn't come online to play around. But before breaking down exactly what she said and why the internet reacted the way it did, there's a bigger picture here. Because if you jump into this story without knowing who these people are and how their history connects, you're gonna miss why this whole situation exploded the way it did.
That's it. You don't even get that title no more. You lost it. You're a sperm donor.
So let's start this story from the very beginning. NBA YoungBoy, born Kentrell Deshaun Gaulden on October 20th, 1999 in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, is far from your average rapper. This isn't some artist who pops for a year and then fades away. We're talking about a serious force in the rap world, someone who has been dominating the scene since his teenage years and hasn't slowed down since. By early 2026, his numbers look almost unreal. NBA YoungBoy holds the record for the most Billboard 200 chart entries by any rapper in his generation. 34 different projects have hit the chart, breaking a record that stood strong for years, and he managed to do it all in just 8 years of dropping music. That kind of run doesn't happen by accident. The certifications tell the same story. He's the most RIAA certified rapper of all time.
Think she's superior sitting in a house getting cheated on.
Stacking up more than 126 gold or higher certifications as a lead artist. At one point, Complex even placed him on the cover and called him the best rapper alive for 2020. Then there's the touring power. His Make America Slime Again tour reportedly pulled in over $70 million across 42 shows and moved around 555,000 tickets. On YouTube, the numbers are just as wild. His channel has passed 15 billion views, and for a stretch, he was the most watched musician on the entire platform. So make no mistake, this man is not a fluke. He's a full franchise in the music industry. But while his music career keeps breaking records, his personal life has been grabbing headlines just as loud. Because outside the studio, YoungBoy has been dealing with a life situation most people honestly can't even imagine.
You got some nerve to lie to me about my kid. That's why them be your husband down.
Now, here's where YoungBoy's life starts sounding almost unreal. The rapper is reported to have 13 biological children with around 10 different women, with his journey into fatherhood starting when he was only about 16 years old. His first child, Caden, often nicknamed Draco, was born back in 2016, at a time when YoungBoy was barely old enough to even drive. Fast forward to early 2026, and the family tree kept growing. His 13th child was just announced by his wife, Jaslyn Michelle, in late February 2026, literally only days before this entire situation exploded online. The timing alone had people raising their eyebrows everywhere. Jaslyn Michelle Hayes is YoungBoy's wife. The two reportedly started building their relationship around 2022 before making it official with a marriage in 2023. Since then, she's welcomed at least 3 of his children, with the newest baby announcement landing right before all this drama suddenly hit the internet.
My son didn't do. He's innocent. She still asks about your dirty.
On the surface, Jaslyn has always carried herself like someone completely unbothered by outside noise. She rarely jumps into online arguments, avoids blog drama, and mostly shares calm family moments while keeping a polished image. Many fans saw her as the steady presence, the composed, loyal partner who stayed above the chaos surrounding YoungBoy's complicated personal life. That reputation of being the quiet, ride-or-die wife who moves differently from everyone else around him was exactly the image people believed in. But that's the image Arcola suddenly stepped forward to challenge. Arcola is often described online as YoungBoy's 7th child's mother, and she is the mother of his son, Kale, who was reportedly born around 2020 or 2021, depending on the source. For the most part, she had been raising her son quietly and largely outside of the internet spotlight. No constant blog appearances, no reality show energy.
He still say he miss you. Anyways, I'm done. My TED Talk.
No regular involvement in the usual celebrity drama cycles. Then something changed. According to what she later explained, her son came back home after a visit at YoungBoy and Jaslyn's house with a noticeable mark on his hand. The explanation she received didn't sit right with her at all. And whatever really happened in that moment seemed to flip a switch that had been building for a long time. Soon after, clips and posts connected to the situation began circulating fast across X, turning the entire situation into a viral storm almost overnight. Clips from her live stream started getting stitched together almost instantly. Within hours, those videos were everywhere, pulling in hundreds of thousands of views as people rushed to see what she had said. One viral post from the account since day one on X really pushed the story into overdrive.
Man, I feel very wrong about a lot of things. How many lives I actually am responsible for when it comes to my music.
The caption on that post framed the whole situation in a way that grabbed everyone's attention. It claimed Arcola was finally confirming what some fans had been whispering about for a while. The post described Jaslyn as, in its words, a wolf in sheep's clothing, someone who appeared calm and innocent on the surface, but might have been moving very differently behind the scenes. And Arcola, sitting there on camera, she brought serious energy, the kind of energy that doesn't look planned or rehearsed. It felt like someone who had been holding frustration in for a long time and finally decided she wasn't keeping quiet anymore. She spoke clearly, pointed to details, and made sure nobody missed what she was trying to say. There was no slow introduction either, no easing into the topic. She jumped straight into the situation with intensity, and people watching quickly realized this wasn't being presented like a performance or some attempt at chasing attention. To viewers, it looked like someone finally letting out something they had been sitting on for a long time. The entire conversation quickly centered around one key moment, the injury to Kale's finger. According to Arcola, that mark on her son's hand became the starting point for everything she decided to talk about during the live stream.
Kids and people have gotten in the car or put this in their ears and actually went hurt.
She also addressed the explanation she said she received. Arcola claimed that when she texted Jaslyn asking what happened to her son's hand, Jaslyn replied that it was a dog bite, but Arcola strongly rejected that explanation during the live stream. While speaking to the camera, she even used her hands to demonstrate the mark she said she saw, insisting it didn't look like a dog bite at all. And that's exactly what she did right there during the live stream. Arcola started pulling up pictures of actual dog bites and holding them up to the camera for comparison, almost like she was laying out evidence in a courtroom. The whole vibe of the live suddenly felt like a trial, and she was the one presenting the case herself. She pointed at the images, compared the shapes, and explained why she believed the mark on her son's finger didn't match what a dog bite normally looks like. Watching it unfold, viewers could see she was fully locked in on proving her point. The moment those clips started spreading online, every comment section across multiple platforms lit up instantly. Wherever that video landed, the reactions went wild. People began analyzing the clip frame by frame, discussing the shape of the mark, the color, and even the exact spot on the finger. Social media quickly turned into a giant debate room, with thousands of users sharing their opinions before the live stream had even finished. Now this part matters because it's important to keep things clear. As of March 4th, 2026, there have been no publicly confirmed police reports connected to the situation. There has also been no verified investigation announced by Child Protection Services, and no mainstream outlet has confirmed the claim about the injury. What people saw during that live stream were Arcola's personal allegations, shared in real time during an emotional moment. Still, one thing viewers noticed was how strongly she stood by what she was saying.
Now I'm sitting back like, damn, I can't do it all in one day, but I promise to clean whatever I can clean, but it's gonna take time.
She spoke with full confidence and attached her own name to the story while thousands of people watched live. That alone made the moment feel intense. She also raised another question that got people thinking. According to Arcola, if the mark truly came from a dog bite, she wondered why her son wasn't taken to get a tetanus shot or any type of medical check afterward. In her mind, the lack of medical follow-up didn't make sense. And for many parents watching the live stream, that detail became a huge part of the discussion. After speaking about the injury, Arcola shifted into something that clearly had been weighing on her for much longer. The conversation moved past that single moment and into her bigger frustration about co-parenting. During the live stream, she claimed that NBA YoungBoy had not been a consistently present father in Kale's day-to-day life. According to her, many of the times he picked up their son felt more like moments for photos or social media posts rather than regular parenting time. She explained that most of the everyday responsibilities, the routine, the care, the constant presence, had been falling on her shoulders. That part of the live stream hit a nerve with viewers who were already debating how celebrity parents balance fame and family. Then she turned her attention directly toward Jaslyn, and that's when the tone of the live stream became even more intense. The wolf in sheep's clothing phrase that had been floating around in online gossip suddenly became a central part of Arcola's message. She wasn't just criticizing actions, she was challenging the public image people believed about Jaslyn. Arcola suggested that the calm, polished persona many fans saw online didn't reflect what she believed was really happening behind the scenes. During the live, she openly questioned the image of the quiet, drama-free wife who seemed untouched by the chaos surrounding YoungBoy's complicated personal life. In Arcola's view, that image was carefully built and very intentional. By this point, the live stream had grown far beyond a basic co-parenting disagreement. What started as a conversation about a child's injury had turned into a much larger discussion about reputation, family dynamics, and the public image surrounding YoungBoy's household. But underneath all the loud reactions and heated accusations, one part of what she said stood out to many viewers. Arcola spoke about her son still asking about his father and still saying that he misses him. That detail shifted the tone of the whole situation, because a child expressing those feelings isn't internet drama. It's a real family situation that many people watching could relate to. At the center of all this noise is a real child with real feelings. That was the point Arcola kept coming back to during the live stream. She made it clear that in her eyes, she was sitting in front of that camera speaking up for her son the only way she knew how. To her, this wasn't entertainment or internet drama. It was about protecting her child. And right in the middle of that emotional moment, she even dropped a line that had the internet buzzing. She ended one part of her rant by saying, "Thanks for coming to my TED Talk." The comment caught viewers off guard, and even people who didn't agree with everything she said admitted the line was sharp. Social media ran with it immediately, turning that moment into one of the most quoted clips from the entire live stream. But the tension between Arcola and YoungBoy didn't just appear overnight. The history between them goes back years, and one of the most serious moments reportedly happened in November 2023. Around that time, Arcola publicly accused YoungBoy of a situation that she said took place at his Utah home while he was on house arrest. According to her claims, she had gone to the property to pick up their son, Kale. She said the situation quickly became heated and physical. Arcola alleged that two women confronted her during the encounter, and she claimed she ended up with an injury above her eye that required 5 stitches. She also said she was holding her child in her arms when the incident happened. The argument, she explained, allegedly started over a dispute about travel costs related to picking up their son. Screenshots of messages that included Jaslyn were later circulated online as part of that financial disagreement. Jaslyn was not accused of physically participating in the altercation, but her name still appeared in the conversation surrounding it. Arcola said at the time that she wasn't planning to press charges, but she made sure the public knew her version of the story. That was back in 2023. By 2026, the tension between everyone involved had clearly not cooled down. If anything, it had intensified. During the March 2026 live stream, Arcola revealed she planned to take YoungBoy to court over child support, saying a hearing had already been scheduled for June 26, 2026 at 8 in the morning. That announcement added another major twist to an already explosive situation. So when Arcola announced that court date during the live stream, people in the comments really shouldn't have been shocked. From the way she explained it, this wasn't something she had just thought up that night. The paperwork had already been filed, and the case was already moving through the system. The live stream was simply the moment she decided to make it public for everyone watching. She even ended one of her rants with a line that instantly stuck with viewers. Looking straight at the camera, she said, "See you June 26th at 8 a.m. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk." The internet ran with that moment immediately. The way she said it didn't sound like a random threat or emotional outburst. To many people watching, it sounded more like she was sending out a calendar reminder that the legal battle was already scheduled. But her accusations about YoungBoy's parenting went beyond the situation with the injury. During the live stream, she openly called him a deadbeat and claimed he mainly shows up for moments that can be posted online. According to her, those visits often turn into photos or short clips that make it look like he's fully present in his children's lives on social media timelines. What she argued, though, was that the everyday responsibilities, things like regular care, consistent support, and the routine parts of parenting, were mostly left to the mothers. That claim quickly sparked debate across the internet. Some people defended YoungBoy, while others said Arcola was raising questions many had already wondered about. At one point, she even pointed to the size of his family situation. With 13 children reportedly shared between around 10 different mothers, she argued that it would be difficult for any one parent to divide time equally across that many households. Add in legal situations, career pressures, and a major music career, and the conversation online started turning into a bigger discussion about how celebrity parenting works in real life. But this story was never going to stay between just Arcola and YoungBoy. Situations involving him rarely stayed as simple. Before long, another well-known name stepped into the conversation. Yaya Mayweather, also known as Yaya Mayweather, the daughter of Floyd Mayweather and the mother of YoungBoy's son, Kentrell Jr. The moment her name entered the chat, the internet knew the drama was about to grow even bigger. And if you know anything about the long, complicated story surrounding NBA YoungBoy, then you already know Yaya Mayweather is far from a background character. She has been one of the most talked about figures connected to him for years, and her history in this situation goes into some very serious territory. Back on April 3rd, 2020, a major incident reportedly happened at YoungBoy's home in Houston, Texas. According to police reports from that time, Yaya, whose full name is Yaya Mayweather, was involved in a violent confrontation with Lepatra Lashai Jacobs, another woman who also shares a child with YoungBoy. Authorities said the situation began after Yaya arrived at the house and found Lepatra there. What reportedly started as a heated argument quickly escalated into a physical altercation. During that confrontation, Lepatra Jacobs was stabbed multiple times in the arm. The incident shocked fans and quickly became national news. Yaya was arrested and charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, which is a second-degree felony in Texas. That charge carried a possible prison sentence ranging from 2 to 20 years. The case stayed in the headlines for a long time as it moved through the legal system. Then in April 2022, she entered a guilty plea and received 6 years of deferred adjudication probation. That outcome meant she avoided prison time as long as she followed the conditions set by the court. Years later, in November 2025, she posted a public apology online. In that message, she addressed her parents and also mentioned Lepatra Jacobs by name, speaking about growth, accountability, and moving forward from that difficult moment in her past. For a while, it looked like she was trying to stay out of the drama and turn a new page, but when the viral compilation about Arcola's live stream started exploding across social media in March 2026, Yaya's name popped back into the conversation again. She began retweeting and supporting posts that questioned Jasline's public image. She didn't jump on live or start yelling online, but the posts she interacted with sent a clear signal to people watching closely. To many observers, it looked like she was quietly agreeing with the idea that the calm, polished image surrounding YoungBoy's household might not fully match what was happening behind the scenes. In a situation like this, Yaya's cosign carried serious weight. This wasn't just a random comment from someone in a reply section. Because of her long history connected to YoungBoy, anything she interacted with instantly grabbed attention. The moment people noticed her engaging with those posts, the conversation online got even louder. But it didn't take long for someone from Jazlynn's side to respond. Jazlynn's sister, Caliente, stepped in almost immediately and pushed back at Yaya. She came with screenshots and accusations of her own, claiming Yaya had been acting two-faced. According to Caliente, Yaya had allegedly sent private apologies behind the scenes while still supporting posts that threw public shade online. That response kicked off a whole separate argument across social media.
Soon, the situation started branching out in multiple directions. More names were mentioned, more screenshots were shared, and people online were suddenly trying to keep track of several different conflicts happening at the same time. Even though the arguments were coming from different people, many of them were circling around the same topic: Jazlynn's reputation and whether the life she publicly presented as YoungBoy's wife matched what was really happening behind the scenes. As the conversation grew, an older story began resurfacing with fresh attention. A storytime video posted in December 2024 by an Instagram model known as 7TV started circulating again. In that video, she had claimed that she was flown out to YoungBoy's home in Utah back in 2022 while he was already involved with Jazlynn. She described having an encounter with him during that visit. Arcola even brought that story up directly during her live stream. In her view, the situation suggested that Jazlynn may have been aware of certain things happening but chose to stay in the relationship anyway. Arcola argued that the lifestyle, the marriage, and the financial security might have played a role in that decision. Whether that interpretation is fair or not is still debated online. But once those claims started spreading again, the internet picked them up fast, adding even more fuel to an already explosive conversation. For someone whose public image was built around being the calm, untouchable wife who stayed above all the chaos, having this kind of narrative suddenly tied to your name in front of millions of people is not something that just disappears overnight. Jazlynn's brand had always been the quiet, polished partner who didn't engage in the mess. But once the internet starts questioning that image, the pressure hits fast and loud. Then another detail surfaced that for many people watching the situation did even more damage to YoungBoy's reputation than the accusations aimed at Jazlynn. Reports began circulating that during one of the heated back-and-forth arguments, YoungBoy allegedly made a very harsh and disrespectful remark about his own son while arguing with Arcola. Now, whether those were the exact words used, whether the context was misunderstood, or whether it was something said in anger that came out wrong, none of those details slowed the internet down. Once that claim hit social media timelines, people reacted instantly. Online audiences processed it as fact, and the reaction spread like wildfire. And this time, the response felt different from his past controversies. Over the years, fans had defended YoungBoy through all kinds of headlines: legal troubles, court cases, online feuds, and constant drama between different circles around him. His supporters usually stayed loud and loyal through everything. But this situation hit a nerve that was harder for people to defend, because the child at the center of the conversation is a young kid, reportedly around 5 years old, who, according to his mother, still asks about his father and says he misses him. That detail made the conversation feel heavier than the usual celebrity drama people scroll past every day. In the days that followed the backlash, YoungBoy reportedly deactivated his Twitter X account for a period of time. Before that, he had already been speaking publicly in defense of Jazlynn, telling critics online to keep her name out of their conversations. But by that point, the story had already spread across the internet, and the debate around his family life was moving faster than anyone involved could control. YoungBoy had been publicly praising Jazlynn for a long time. He often described her as his motivation and the person who brought stability into his life. But once Arcola's live stream clips started spreading, combined with Yaya's quiet cosign, the old 7TV story resurfacing, and the allegation involving his son,
The situation quickly grew into a wave that his usual responses couldn't easily calm down. At that point, the conversation online had become bigger than just one live stream. And to really understand why the tension exploded the way it did, you have to zoom out and look at where some of this narrative actually began, because the idea that Jaslyn was positioned differently from the other mothers didn't suddenly appear in 2026.
A lot of people trace it back to November 2022, and the person who sparked that narrative was YoungBoy himself. Around November 20th, 2022, he posted an emotional message on Instagram that got a lot of attention. In that post, he said he planned to distance himself from contact with several of his children for the time being. According to him, some of the mothers had been using the children as leverage in conflicts with him, damaging his reputation and pulling him into ongoing drama. He wrote that those children would be able to reach out to him themselves when they were older and able to understand the situation from their own perspective. The post shocked many fans because of how openly he addressed the family tension. But the part that really stood out was how strongly he praised Jaslyn in the same message. In the post, he wrote, "Jaslyn told me to stop trusting these," before continuing his explanation about the situation. He credited her with helping him see things more clearly and made it clear that he trusted her more than anyone else around him. To supporters, it looked like he was simply defending his wife. But for the other mothers of his children, the message landed very differently. For women like Arcola, who had reportedly been raising Kale mostly on her own, that post felt less like a statement and more like a line being drawn in the sand. It showed exactly where everyone stood in YoungBoy's world and exactly whose voice carried the most influence in his life. Looking back now, some people believe that moment in November 2022 may have quietly set the stage for everything that followed, because only a year later, tensions were already rising, and by March 2026, Arcola was sitting on a live stream in front of thousands of viewers, passionately explaining why she believes something was seriously wrong. The story of NBA YoungBoy's rise isn't some clean, comfortable success story. It starts in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, in circumstances that were already heavy before he was even old enough to understand them. His father received a 55-year prison sentence when Kentrell was still very young, long before he could really grasp what something like that meant. For most of his childhood, he was raised by his grandmother. In interviews, YoungBoy has described her as his protector, the person who made him feel safe when everything else around him felt unstable. Losing her to heart failure after one of his releases from juvenile detention was a moment he has said changed him deeply. That loss left a hole in his life that fans say you can hear in a lot of his music. Even earlier than that, he had already faced serious challenges. Around the age of 4, he was involved in a wrestling accident that broke his neck. The injury required him to wear a medical halo brace, which left permanent scars on his head that are still visible today. Those marks became a physical reminder of how rough his early years were. Music became his outlet. At around 14 years old, he started recording songs using a basic microphone from Walmart because it was the only equipment he could afford at the time. There was no fancy studio setup, no industry backing, just a teenager trying to turn his reality into music. But the streets and the music career were happening at the same time. At 16, he was arrested on an attempted first-degree murder charge connected to a drive-by shooting. After taking a plea deal, he returned to recording music almost immediately, treating the studio like it was the one place where he could keep pushing forward. The momentum came fast after that. By August 2017, he had signed with Atlantic Records in a deal reportedly worth around $2 million. By 2019, he had become the most watched artist on YouTube in the United States for an incredible 101 consecutive weeks. He later made history by becoming the first rapper to release 3 #1 albums on the Billboard 200 within a single year. In 2021, he even recorded and released the album Sincerely Kentrell while behind bars, and it debuted at #1, placing him alongside legends like Tupac and Lil Wayne, who had achieved something similar. Through all of those achievements, though, one thing never seemed to slow down: the drama surrounding his life outside the music. The legal trouble never really stopped. The headlines about conflicts and family drama never fully went away either. Yet somehow, none of it slowed down YoungBoy's career. If anything, the chaos around him often seemed to push his music even harder. Back in 2018, surveillance footage surfaced that showed a confrontation involving YoungBoy and his then-girlfriend, Jania Michelle, inside a hotel hallway in Waycross, Georgia. The footage spread quickly online and led to serious legal consequences. A grand jury later indicted him on aggravated assault and kidnapping charges connected to that incident. The case eventually reached a resolution in December 2019. YoungBoy pleaded guilty to a reduced misdemeanor charge of simple battery. He paid a fine, completed probation requirements, and moved forward. From a career standpoint, nothing really paused. The streaming numbers stayed high, the fan base stayed loud, and his music continued dominating the charts. Around that same period, during a major Billboard cover interview, he opened up about the emotional weight of living through so many controversies. One comment in particular caught people's attention because it sounded like a rare moment of reflection from someone who had spent most of his adult life surrounded by constant headlines. He admitted that fame, legal trouble, and non-stop public drama had taken a serious toll on him personally. For fans who had watched his rise from Baton Rouge teenager to global rap star, hearing that level of honesty hit differently. It showed a side of him that people don't always see in the middle of the noise. And he didn't stop there. He kept talking, almost like he was trying to process everything out loud. Instead of the usual defiant tone people expected, the moment felt more like someone thinking deeply about the road he had traveled and the choices that came with it. That version of YoungBoy sounded very different from the one who used to jump online and dismiss critics or argue with people publicly. Whether listeners believed the change or not, it suggested that his mindset might have been shifting as he got older. That context matters now because all of this new drama started exploding just as he was entering a completely new chapter of his life. In May 2025, he received a presidential pardon related to federal gun charges. That moment lifted a huge weight from his career and gave him a level of freedom he hadn't had in years, and he wasted no time moving. Soon after, the Make America Slime Again tour launched and quickly became one of the biggest runs of his career. The tour reportedly grossed around $70 million, selling roughly 555,000 tickets across 42 shows. Night after night, those arenas were packed with fans screaming every lyric, proving that despite all the controversy, his audience was still fully locked in. Slime Cry dropped in January 2026 and landed at number 6 on the Billboard 200. Even with everything going on around him, the numbers showed that YoungBoy's momentum was still very real. His schedule moving forward looks just as packed. There's talk of a European tour being lined up, several new projects planned for 2026, a concert documentary in development, and even the launch of his 38 Films brand expanding into new content. On paper, his career machine is running at full speed. So the real question becomes this: where does Arcola's live stream actually fit into all of that? Where do the allegations, the child support court date, Yaya's public cosigns, and the sudden wave of drama around Jazlynn's image land when you stack them next to the scale of YoungBoy's career right now?
In the short term, it might not shake things commercially as much as people online expect. YoungBoy's core audience moves differently than a typical mainstream pop fan base. His most loyal supporters, the people who have been riding with him since the early Baton Rouge mixtape days, aren't sitting around refreshing gossip blogs before deciding whether they're going to stream his music. Those fans have already watched him go through years of headlines: shootings, legal battles, house arrest, family drama, and major federal cases. Through all of that, the fan base stayed locked in. For many of them, the chaos around his life has always been tied to the emotional intensity in his music. They hear real struggle in his songs because the situations behind them are real. Because of that connection, situations involving co-parenting disputes or online accusations don't automatically break the bond between him and his supporters. That relationship has already survived a long list of controversies, including the kidnapping indictment, the hotel incident captured on surveillance, federal firearm charges, multiple house arrest violations, and years of highly public family conflicts. And somehow, every time the storm hit, the career kept growing instead of collapsing.
More albums charted, more records broken, more influence in the culture. Even during strict house arrest between 2021 and 2025, YoungBoy reportedly stayed locked in creatively, recording and releasing hundreds of songs. Estimates suggest he dropped more than 300 tracks during that period alone, a level of output that very few artists in the industry could even attempt. YoungBoy has already done things in his career that most artists never even come close to. He debuted at #1 while sitting in a prison cell. He broke major Billboard 200 records while living under strict restrictions inside a Utah mansion during house arrest. Time after time, the music kept winning no matter what situation surrounded him. So one thing has been proven again and again: the music side of this story has never really been fragile. But this is where the conversation slows down and gets more complicated, because there is a version of this situation where the damage could still be very real, even if it never shows up on a streaming chart. The reason is simple: the allegation involving a child changes the tone of everything. Even though the claim remains unverified, the moment that kind of accusation enters the conversation, it brings a completely different level of attention. Most of the controversies tied to YoungBoy in the past focused on his own actions, legal trouble, personal decisions, and conflicts he was directly involved in. What Arcola described during her live stream is different in nature. Her story centers around a young child, reportedly around 5 years old, who came home from a visit with a mark on his hand that she says she did not recognize. From her perspective, that moment was serious enough to push her to speak publicly. She also claimed that during the heated argument about the situation, YoungBoy allegedly made a harsh remark involving his son. Whether that statement was quoted exactly the way it was said, misunderstood in context, or repeated incorrectly is still debated online. But once that claim reached social media timelines, it immediately drew intense reactions. Situations involving children often bring a different kind of scrutiny. Instead of just blog headlines or celebrity gossip, people start asking deeper questions. Questions about responsibility. Questions about how someone balances fame, pressure, and a large family. Questions about what accountability should look like when many lives are involved. The label of deadbeat dad has been thrown around his name before during online arguments, but this time the conversation feels heavier to some observers because it appeared alongside an allegation involving a child and a legal case that already has a scheduled court date.
And that part is no longer just internet talk. The child support case Arcola mentioned is reportedly set for June 26, 2026 at 8 a.m. At that point, the situation moves out of live streams and social media debates and into an actual courtroom process where the next chapter of this story will begin. That date isn't just another argument online anymore. It's a real entry on a courthouse calendar. And court dates bring a completely different kind of attention than social media debates. The coverage becomes slower, more official, and a lot harder to spin or make disappear. Once the legal system gets involved, the conversation moves out of comment sections and into records, hearings, and decisions that carry real weight. When you step back and look at the bigger picture, this situation highlights something that has always been true about NBA YoungBoy. Even if people don't always say it directly, his career has rarely been the fragile part of his story. The music has been the one constant. No matter what was happening around him, the output never slowed down. He released hundreds of songs while on house arrest. He had major projects debut at #1 while dealing with legal restrictions. He even broke chart records while wearing an ankle monitor and navigating intense court cases. That level of productivity kept his place in the rap world solid no matter how chaotic the headlines became. So the music side of his life has always seemed locked in. The fan base stayed loyal. The streaming numbers stayed strong. The business side of the empire kept growing. But the one area that has always been more exposed is the personal narrative around his family life. The image of who he is outside the studio, as a father, as a husband, as someone trying to build stability in the middle of constant pressure, has always been more complicated. For a long time, Jaslyn played a central role in that image. Many fans saw her as the calm presence in the middle of everything, the composed wife who stayed out of drama, the person who stood beside him when everything else around him looked chaotic.
That idea helped shape the story that YoungBoy had finally found a real sense of stability. Arcola's live stream directly challenged that narrative. Instead of accepting the image of a peaceful household, she argued that the stability people saw online might not reflect the full reality behind the scenes. In her view, the situation looked very different from the outside image being presented. Whether those claims hold up under legal scrutiny is a separate question that will ultimately play out through the court process. But one thing is already clear. The conversation around YoungBoy's personal life has shifted, because after that live stream, millions of people who watched the situation unfold are now looking toward June 26th with a completely different level of attention. So the big question everyone keeps asking is this: did Arcola destroy NBA YoungBoy's career? Not even close. His music career is still moving strong. The fans are still streaming, and the numbers haven't suddenly disappeared overnight. That part of his world is still solid. But did her live stream crack open a situation that was already under pressure and put it in front of the entire internet? Absolutely. Once something like that goes public, it doesn't just fade away quietly, especially when there are this many people involved and an actual court date already sitting on the calendar. In situations this deep, cracks usually don't stay small for long. Now, I want to hear what you think. Did this situation change how you see everything going on around YoungBoy? Or do you think his career keeps moving like nothing happened? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you made it this far, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who's been following the story. It really helps the channel grow and keeps more videos like this coming. Thanks for watching, and check out the videos popping up on your screen right now for more stories just like this.